Jules, great to finally catch up with you, and thanks for agreeing to talk to us and tell us your story. So let's start at the beginning. Tell me about your sailing history. Where did you start, and how did you get to where you are today in your sailing career?
Well, I started in your part of the world, Wayne. So I used to do a lot of rowing when I was at school, and then when I was at uni, I'd sailed as a kid in dinghies and lasers a little bit, but I got into the offshore sailing on the Sigma 38s. That shows my age a bit. I think I did my first fast net in '99 on Billy Whiz, which I think is possibly still around the Solent somewhere. And then three of us thought we'd like to own a boat rather than crew on boats. So we got a home improvement mortgage extension on my mate's apartment in London, and we bought an Impala 28. And then we bought it and discovered it's quite expensive to buy sails and stuff. So we persuaded Jameson Irish Whiskey to sponsor us, and we did all the jog. So we sailed with jog, did all the cross-channel races, we did Cows Week. We had some really good successes. And then I moved to Australia in 2002 and just did a lot of offshore for the first 10 years. Then had kids and didn't have the time for the offshore, so got into the laser sailing again. And I've spent 10 years now doing the Masters scene, done a couple of Masters Worlds, and there's a really, really active laser scene here in Australia. So we'll get a couple hundred boats at the Masters Nationals. And that's been phenomenal training.
Yeah. Did you have professional coaching during that period, or was it just experiences that you learned and watched other people? How did you develop your skill?
So yes, we have. So I sail out of Double Bay Sailing Club on Sydney Harbour, which is purely lasers. So okay. I think we've got 75 lasers in the shed there. And Brett Baer, who I think holds the world record for winning the most number of laser world championships.
Did you not find that frustrating?
Oh my God, phenomenally good sailor. And so Brett has been coaching us for the last probably 5 years or so, and an outstanding coach. And that's the first time in my life I've had any sailing coaching. And it's Brett is the man for lasers, and it's been really, really fun building skills in that one design fleet.
Oh, cool. So did you find that skill transferable? Is it once you can sail a laser, you can use that on other boats? It's a skill that you can move on to bigger boats?
Definitely. And I've always held the view, like going back to those Impala days, all the other two guys done a lot of dinghy sailing as kids. And I've always been a believer that if you're a good dinghy sailor, you'll be a better yacht sailor.
Okay. No, you're not the first person to say that to me. It's interesting. Yeah. What selection process did you go through to select the boat you got now for such a big offshore race? Because it's quite a small boat, really, for an epic race like that.
Yeah, we did a lot of research, and the whole program was about the Sydney-Hobart. So it was all about competing in and doing the best we could in that two-handed division. Now, on the Australian East Coast, where we are, you have two dominant breezes. You have a summer nor'easter, which is the sea breeze, which blows northeast, southwest down the coast. Then we have the southerly fronts come up the coast out of the Tasman Sea. So you really are on a windward leeward course. There's minimal reaching during the main summer season. Springtime, we get westerlies, offshore westerlies, and we had some of those in our training races. But the chance are when you go to Hobart, you're running downwind on a nor'easter, or you're beating into a southerly of some form. And it was on that basis that the J99 stacked up really, really well. Like it goes upwind well, it goes downwind well. If it'd been a reaching race, maybe there'd be different boats that would have been in the consideration set, but the J99 delivered on those aspects and delivered in the race in that regard.
What were the main challenges then to get yourself on to the start as a double-handed sailor? Did you have to work on fitness or any personal stuff just to be ready for it?
Yeah, gosh, there's so much that goes into it. I think there's 5 components, and I had a little think about this before to try and get this concise for you and everyone listening. The first is the human component, and we learned early on you've got to be physically fit. It's even though we're on a small boat, the sails aren't that heavy. It's physically hard. So we're both physically active. Clogs rides a lot. I actually ended up renting a ergo rowing machine, which I was on 2 or 3 times a week. I was on the laser, and that was really important. Having that physical fitness. The next component was the sustenance, and we put a lot of thought into the amount of calories we needed to eat, the most simple way of preparing that food. We were very conscious of hydration as part of that.
Yeah.
And so we a lot of hydrolytes and making sure that we had the electrolytes up in the blood as well. We found those really, we learned on the training sessions, that was really important.
Yeah.
And then the third bit, that it took us a while to get this understood and right, and we probably got it right on the Hobart race for the first time, was the rest and the watch system. So because of COVID, we had a bunch of floods earlier in the year, our longer training races, our 3-4 day training races, were cancelled for various reasons. So our goal was 3 hours on, 3 hours off. There was probably half an hour changeover at each end, so it probably ended up being 2 hours down, half an hour changeover each end, and so sort of 3 hours up, 2 hours actually in the bunk.
Okay.
And that worked. Oddly, that was really easy the first night when it was rough, because we're going upwind, you're just plugging away. It was hardest on night 3 when we were in the Bass Strait and it was very light and we were going downwind and we were jibing on the shifts with the kite, and we were both up for jibes. We just didn't want to get anything torn, tangled. So that was very disrupted sleep that night. So that's point 1, the human component. The next point was getting the rig and sails right, and we had the sponsorship from Contender, so we went with panelled sails, which we used Contender's ZZ Jet Black sailcloth, really good sailcloth, and worked very closely with Ian Short, the sailmaker. And we did a few things. The average wind speed for the Sydney-Hobart, they say it's about 14 knots. So it's relatively high for an average wind strength.
Yeah.
We were fully powered up at about 8 knots with the sails, with a full-size main on the boat. So we went for a smaller mainsail, which gave us a big rating advantage, and you'll see our IRC rating's a bit lower. And that moved we're fully powered at about 12 knots now. So that was a really important.
That's interesting, because that's going to be slightly different to what we've got here, because our average is going to be lower.
Yeah, so I think that's understanding that is really important. And then the cut of your sails, getting the right sail wardrobe. And this leads on to the next point, which is navigation. Simplicity is really critical when it's two-handed. We didn't have inner forestays, anything like that. We did keep the number 4 jib up with the heavy asymmetric on when we were running downwind, but we didn't set up inner forestays and furling staysails or anything like that.
Okay.
In our sail wardrobe. The other thing we did was we went for a 3-reefed main, right, rather than trying to worry about trysails.
Yeah.
We felt that if you're in a real bad storm, as you can get in that Tasman Sea, trying to get a trysail into the mast track would be extremely difficult with just 2 of you.
Yeah,
so
I can imagine. You had some big weather as well.
Third reef. Yeah, the first night was pretty windy, and here's a good stat for you. So we had that East Australia current that goes north-south, and we went a long way offshore. We had about 3.5 knots running south into a southerly breeze, so it was wind over tide. The water temperature out there was 26 degrees.
Wow.
When we got down to Hobart, it was 17 degrees.
Wow.
So 9-degree difference in water temperature. Third thing was navigation, and you don't have the time. You don't have the time to sit at the chart table when you're two-handed. So we used Predict Wind predominantly on a tablet, supported with Expedition, which is fairly standard across the boats here. fourth thing you've got to get right is your safety and your boat setup. So we had to we didn't have to do a lot because the J99 is pretty much ready to go. We did little things like a jack stay on the cockpit floor, so you can clip on before you leave the cabin.
Yeah.
Then the fifth and final part of a two-handed program is the program management. Like that, I think is one of the most difficult. We've all got jobs and lives and families.
Of course.
There's only two of you to do everything.
Yeah.
So getting that support network of shipwrights, sailmakers, who you need around you is really important. Yeah, and you've got to start early. Like it took us a year. It was a year full program to be ready for the race, and we were busy for that whole year.
Okay. Brilliant. But mate, you won the race. It's an amazing achievement. How does it rate amongst the achievements you've had? Is it you're there now?
That's very kind of you. We put a lot of training into the race, and it was a major focus our goal was to do the best we possibly could.
Yeah.
And you can't control what happens to other boats, and it's wonderful to have been successful. And there's some seriously tough competition that we were up against, and it was to come out on top of that was we feel very, very fortunate to have been successful.
Yeah, oh, that's very very humble of you. Tell me about the Sydney-Hobart race itself. It's on my bucket list, and I think it's on a lot of bucket lists of guys in the UK who'd love to do it. Tell us about the atmosphere and everything else that goes on around the race. Is it are you all in it together? Is it quite Corinthian? Or is it full of pros?
The whole gamut. I mean, Blackjack, the one line honours, is 100% pro crew.
Okay.
There was not a Corinthian on board. The two-handed fleet, we've built amazing camaraderie. So it's been this one, and I think it looks like it's similar with you guys over in the UK with your double-handed fleet. So the knowledge sharing, there's a WhatsApp group everyone's on and sharing man overboard recovery ideas, all sorts of stuff. Two-boat training happening, doing training races when we were still in training sails when we were still in lockdown, which we were allowed to do. But on the race day, well, it's Boxing Day, so it's Christmas time, so the nation's on holiday. And there's two things on Boxing Day. There's the Test cricket and there's the Sydney-Hobart. And I think I saw some data from Google, and the Sydney-Hobart gets more searches than the Boxing Day Test. Now, I don't know whether that's an accurate reflection or not. I don't know, but it certainly garners a lot of national interest.
Yeah, brilliant.
There's a lot of coverage on the news. The harbour's full of boats. The shoreline's full of people watching. It's really special.
Oh, fantastic, mate. Yeah. We get that feeling here. What changes did you make to the boat from a standard boat to prepare for the race? You said that you put an extra clip as you come out of the companionway, which is pretty much of a standard thing that we'd have to do here to our boats for Rorke regs. Is there any other major changes you had to do? Because there was a big number of the fleet that didn't make it to the end of the race. So I just wondered if you had to do anything major.
No, we didn't. We changed a couple of blocks on the backstay after that incident in the Middle Sea race as a precautionary measure. We set the boat up so that you could reef the mainsail from the cockpit.
Gotcha.
So we didn't have to go forward to move the Cunningham.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Just 1-to-1. We made sure we got the rig right for those conditions. That was really important. We really didn't, Wayne. Like the boat's pretty much ready to go.
You'd hope so.
Yeah.
It's not a loaded question. It's just interesting to see, because I guess you set the rig up, but you can't adjust the rig during the race or anything like that, can you? That's just set. Did you do anything with in-haulers or anything special about that? That's just standard stuff that's on the boat.
Left it all as it is. Cut about 3 foot of the unnecessary tail off. It came with a lot of rope. The in-haulers were too long, and the spinnaker sheets and the jib sheets were too short. So we put longer spinnaker sheets, longer jib sheets, shorter in-haulers. No nothing fundamental.
Okay. How did you feel being, one of the smaller boats on the start line? Because there are some pretty big boats taking part in that race. So I imagine it was quite hairy to get along on the start line there.
It was all right, Wayne, because they had 4 start lines.
Oh,
and we were out the back door. So it was quite civilized on our start line. There was 17 of us, all about the same size, and we just saw the maxis disappear over the horizon.
You talked about your start. Is it for a long race like that? Is the start vital and important? Is every section of the race really important? How was your start? Did you plan for a start line or where you wanted to be on the start?
Yeah, look, we're laser sailors, so
okay.
there was a Clogs did give me the word before, and he's like, mate, just don't go as hard as we've gone in the practice races on the start. Anyway, I had a nervous, because they don't give they don't announce any recalls till 5 minutes after the start, and you're pretty much out the harbour at that point.
Yeah.
So I heard start line 1 all clear, start line 2, and there was a pause. Start line 4, and I was like, oh, thank God, we were right on that line. So we were right on it, and we had a very clear strategy down the harbour. There's a bunch of rocks we've got to get round called the Sound Pigs. We deliberately went downwind of those so that we could get a harder line up onto the first rounding mark. And there were 2 class 40s in front of us, and then it was us. So we were third out the harbour, which was psychologically that's really good. Like you're in the race at that point.
Yeah. It's a big boost, isn't it? And I'm assuming all the fleet are trying to do more or less the same thing on that start line to get around those rocks there.
A bunch of them. Well, there's a trick. There was a trick which we'd learned in the practice races the hard way.
Okay.
Where I am here, so there's the course out there.
Yep.
And this big bay, if it's a southerly, you kind of get pulled in here as you're coming towards the Sand Pigs, and then the problem is you got to go really deep, and that's what happened. And there was a couple of boats that got sucked in, who'd been ahead of us, and then they came deep and slow, and we came high and fast and sailed underneath them and around them.
Do you with the 2 of you on the boat, do you have specific strengths and weaknesses? It sounds like you helmed on the start line. Is there a different time or period where you both have better at things? Did one of you do more nav than the other, or did you split everything 50-50 when you were on the boat?
I probably skewed a bit more to the nav. Not that I'm a navigator in the traditional sense of the word, but I quite enjoyed that side of it. So I focused on that. Clogs has got phenomenal. It was his 19th Hobart, and he's won a Laser Masters World Championship. So he's a very accomplished trimmer and really understands sail design and mast design, rig design. So he probably led a bit more on that front. I led a bit more on the nav, but we collaborated on all of that. And I think one of the good things was we were really comfortable with the other person down below and the other person's on deck. Both of us felt very comfortable. They've got the boat. I can go to sleep safe, knowing they will have it covered.
Yeah, you can focus on
that trust is really important.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Now we both know that a large number of the fleet retired. Did you have to do anything to protect the boat? Were you ever thinking, all right, let's just ease off a bit at any point during the racing?
We knew how we had to set the boat up for those conditions. So we were 2 reefs in the main, number 4 jib, and it was that first night. It was pitch black. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face.
Yeah. Okay.
So I saw suddenly you'd be going up, then you're going down, then you're inside a wave, and that was kind of, it was how you were sailing it. So we were pushing, but we never wanted the boat to be on its ear.
Yeah.
So, and this is something Clogs brought to the party from his experience. Is like, sailing the boat fast doesn't mean flogging sails on your ear. It's sail smart, and that paid off for us.
So sounds like you had a fantastic start. Were there any other memorable moments on the trip that you're going to go, oh, that's a nugget I'm going to take with me forever when you were competing?
The moment, so we knew there was that left-hander offshore, and I think if you look at the tracker, we went 75 miles offshore on that first night. And one thing I hadn't done was the job I didn't finish was getting the yellow brick tracker feed into Expedition. So we didn't actually, once we were out of AIS range, we couldn't see where the other boats were.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it was, so we have this twice daily HF radio, scared the whole fleet does. And so we had, and you give your lat and long. So we got the position report 6:30 a.m. on Tuesday, on the day 2 morning. And that was good. And we're like, but the real moment was when it was about 8:30 that morning and the wind just went 20 degrees left. And we were like, oh, here we go. We tacked over, and within an hour, we were cracking sheets and laying Green Cape, which is the southeast corner of New South Wales. And all the boats on shore were in a due southerly, so they were tacking. And that was really the moment where we knew we were in a pretty good spot at that point.
Yeah, you made a good decision and you could feel the benefit. Yeah, fantastic. That's another big motivation, isn't it? Like you said, you have a really good start and then you have to make a big decision like that and it comes off. It gives you that boost. And when you made that last decision you just mentioned about that going offshore, was that when you realised you had a good shout of being in contention for the race, or did you not know really until you got right to the end?
Oh, it's so early. I mean, it's clogs to. The Hobart is a race of many races, similar to a Fastnet, and it was a bit like the start. We were in the game. We were in the game at that point. We did stretch out a significant lead, but then on night 3, we hit that trough line first in Bass Strait, and we were doing 2 knots for 12 hours.
Oh,
and the others were barreling down at 8-9 knots behind us. We lost 30 miles of our lead in that 12 hours. So Cogs described it as like a 5-day laser regatta, 3 races a day and no drops allowed. And I think that's a very good summary of the race.
These are questions from boat owners who've come in with questions on the internet. The first question was, which you've really answered, you didn't have any stay sails. Did you have any, do you race with hanks? Do you race with any furlers on the boat?
Hanks.
That's all hanks.
Hanks, no furlers.
Now you mentioned food and the calories was very important. Did you manage to get anything hot while you were racing?
Yeah, absolutely. So all we had on board was a kettle. We didn't have a jet boil, which had a kettle on the hob that comes with the boat, and we had freeze-dried meals. So you boil the kettle, pour it into the bag, leave it, stir it around, leave it for 10 minutes, then you're good to go.
Yeah.
And we were disciplined about 3 of those a day.
Cool. What were the best decisions you made in preparation before you left? What was the best thing you went, that's gold, that was worthwhile?
I reckon keeping things simple.
Yeah.
As a principle, that really paid dividends.
Yeah. Did you cross sheet when you were sailing the 99?
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
Yes, we did. Spinnakers, jibs, and then you just sit helming and you can control everything.
Gotcha. Makes perfect sense. Water tanks on board, or did you use bottles?
Both.
Cool.
So we had to put a second tank in to be cat, because it's Cat 1, the Hobart, and we had they weren't full, but they had water in each tank, and we had bottles too.
Yeah, okay, for the requirements. What sort of autohelm did you use? What have you got on the boat? What system?
Garmin.
Okay.
So it's all Garmin, and then it comes with the Jeffer head unit.
Yeah. Okay. In that weather and in those conditions, what did you value most on the boat when you were doing the racing?
Good waterproof gear.
And you had that 12-hour light winds. Was there anything on there that you thought, oh, this is gold to have? Because, traditionally, if the average is 14 knots, you're normally in quite big conditions. Was there anything gold that you had, or any nugget you can give people to try and sail these boats in really light?
We stuck with the asymmetrics. We toyed with poling out. We trialled that earlier in the year. We saw what Shirley Robertson and Henry Bombay were doing, and we'd worked out that only worked in 10 to 14 knots of breeze for the rating. That was where you got the incremental boat speed to justify the rating hit. So actually just having that enormous asymmetric spinnaker, I mean, they are huge, those asymmetric, the big ones, dragged us through that quite nicely. Yeah,
fantastic. Well, I've got to tell you, Jules, that's all my questions. It's been absolutely fantastic talking to you. When are you going to come to the Solent and play in our little playground?
I'd love to do that. I'd love to come and have a play on one of the J99s over your way.
Well,
I was thinking the other day, that'd be great fun to come back and do another fast net and join your two-handed fleet.
too right, mate. Well, we've got Key Yachting have got a boat arriving next month, so I'll keep you posted. You can always come up and have a little play on that when you're coming up with the family or something. Come and have a crash around with us.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, Wayne. Well, lovely to meet you.
And you, mate, and you. Thank you so much for your time and for the lovely scenery. It has just got light here now this morning, so fantastic.
Good. All right, well, nice to meet you.
Enjoy your evening. Thanks, Jules. All the very best. Many thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.